go ahead and open it up for questions. David, first one on the left side there, front left.
How's it going, Marcus? Just after you've cut up the tape, the running game has gotten on track in the second half and maybe kind of been stuffed in the first half. What has been the problem in the first half thus far?
Just sustaining blocks, just a 6-inch step here, a missed landmark here, a trip, a quarterback's path pulling it back too tight, just a bunch of little things that happened early in the season that we have to keep continuing to get ironed out. But it was, you're right, it was getting stuffed early, and our guys, to their credit, just kept fighting until we found a seam, and then once we found the seam, I was really proud of them.
Colin, middle right.
Marcus, you've talked the first 2 weeks about earning the right to talk and earning the right to kind of hold stuff back. How much of the playbook would you say you've used or shown through these first 2 weeks, and kind of what's maybe next for this offense as you get into SEC play?
I would say that we've not shown a lot. I think the first game we got control pretty quick, and we just basically ran the same 2 run plays the entire game in the second half. And I think the other day, I mean, we kept shooting ourselves in the foot, going 3 and out, so we had no rhythm, couldn't get anything going. And we ended up running the same play over and over again when we did find that seam in the second half. So I think there's still a lot out there on the table, obviously, with what DK can do and what he can bring to the table, along with some of the other guys, and keep putting the backs in certain situations. I think there's still a lot out there, but looking forward to getting it to grow. To get it planted, we just got to get it to grow now.
Corey Diaz, back left.
Hey, Marcus, whether it's Josh himself or the scheme, what do you think has allowed him to be able to come in after these first 2 games, be one of the top options for Zeb at quarterback?
I think just his work ethic since the spring. He's really put the time in, and he's committed to the game of football, both on the field and off the field, and he's practiced like that the entire camp. So I think that we as a coaching staff and a team, organization, and quarterback room have confidence that if we put the ball up, he's got a really good chance of coming down with it. And he's proved to consistently do that day in and day out since spring ball. So I look forward to seeing what he can do and sustain the rest of the season now that he's not just number 6 that's a body out there. He's proven that he can make plays. People are going to start covering him a little different. So I'm anxious to see him compete and continue to grow in the offense and be productive.
Let's go to Ben Portnoy, front middle.
Marcus kind of asked Shane this yesterday, but you guys obviously saw a lot of stacked boxes against ECU. Just when you're trying to establish a run and you do have that many guys in the box as a defense, I guess just what goes into being able to run the ball against that kind of front? I mean, is it a matter of just guys beating their guy one-on-one, or is it, hitting a couple passes over the top? Is it a combination of all of it? I guess just what kind of goes into sort of being able to establish a run game against that kind of front?
Well, we have to be smart with the plays that we're calling, and I have to make sure I'm putting our guys in the best situation to be productive and have success. That was a very disruptive front we were playing just because they move everywhere. They're blitzing every single snap. So it disrupts your timing, and early in the season it got after our psyche a little bit until we settled in. But I think that we have to do what we did when we separated the game. We have to throw the ball down the field. And we did that a couple times early, but when we throw it, we also have to secure it, and we can't fumble the ball. I mean, we had a touchdown call back. We had a 3rd down conversion fumble. So in that game, you had to throw the ball to get them to loosen up to allow you to run the football. So our guys hung in there, though, and again, really proud of them.
Let's go to Phil Kornblue in the way back.
Hey, Coach, in that East Carolina game, the second half, your run-to-pass ratio was like 2-to-1, so you stuck with the run. When you fell behind 14-0, was it how disciplined do you think you were as a play caller to stick with the game plan? I think a lot of times play callers might take the game plan and toss it when they fall 2 touchdowns behind. Is that a characteristic of you to stick with the game plan even though things aren't going the right way that maybe midway through a ball game?
I think I take a lot of pride in having the discipline to do that. I think what allows a coordinator to do that is a defense that's playing at the level at which our defense is playing. I had a lot of issue. It was very frustrating to go 3 and out the 4 times that we did. It really tests you and it tests your discipline. But when you have a defense that's going out there and just knocking balls down, taking the ball away, scoring on defense, like you have 3 or 4 really, really talented running backs. I mean, you just trust it. You just keep handing them the ball, and you hope that you catch a seam and all it takes is one seam and those guys are gone. I think less plays. So thank goodness the defense was playing at the level they were.
Let's go to David, front left.
Marcus, a couple for you. One, when you knew it was going to be Zeb and not Luke, how much did you have to tweak or change or just not do some things that maybe you would have done?
Luke can operate through the DK package, so we constantly are growing the DK package and the multiple backfields and stuff. So not a lot. We had the plays on there. If Luke was able to go, he could have went and executed. But him and Zeb are going to operate the same type of passing game and run action game, play and keeper game. So not a lot.
And after watching your first two games, have you had to change any or add any new run schemes? Not dependent on the back, but just your overall run scheme.
Not really, no. It's just weird. Again, it's very frustrating because we didn't like the feel of that game, obviously, like a lot of people early on at the East Carolina game. But you go through that first game and you didn't have to do a lot. And then you go through that East Carolina game and what you thought might be successful was not. Then you had to adjust a little bit in the second half. And so you're sitting here 2 games into it and you feel like you haven't really gotten the meat and potatoes of the run game going with what you had envisioned going into the season. So we're anxious to continue to work hard during practice and get to a situation where we can get the run game going and get the full allotment of plays and schemes that we have out there available.
Let's go to Colin Taylor, front right.
Marcus, sticking with the run game, just how close are you to really figuring out what this team's good at from a run game perspective, whether it's gap scheme, outside zone, inside zone, or pin and pull? How closer do you feel?
I could give you a fake answer about how I'm so close. I really have no idea right now. Like we are just going to make sure, each running back's a little different. So this running back can run this well. This running back can run this well. This left tackle blocks this play well. This right tackle blocks this play well. So it's a matter of being smart enough to make certain calls based on where you are on the field, who's in the backfield, where which side of the line are you attacking, what's the attack point. And so I think that's what I'm trying to do is just figure out how to get that organized and get that executed on game day to make sure that we're maximizing our potential.
And looking at Georgia, just what about their defense is challenging and how much of a test is it going to be for this offense?
That's a tough question right there. Everything about their defense is challenging. I mean, they look like I just came from the Panthers. Like I talked to some of those guys early in the week. I was like, we're doing the protection plan. It's an NFL scheme on third down. Their sub third down protection or blitz pressure package is unbelievable. You mix in the talent at DB, the length at DB, the speed, the leadership. I mean, that number 17, that linebacker scares me. He is an absolute warrior out there, and he organizes and orchestrates the whole defense. Their D-line, they bring 4 in and 4 off, great pass rushers. So they're a challenge at every single position for us offensively right now. So to answer your question, it's going to be a great challenge. But like most competitors, our guys are, and myself and Coach Beamer, we are excited about to get to go do this. This is going to be really, really hard, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Go to Corey Diaz, back left.
Marcus, again on the run game, with the backs having different skill sets, could that potentially be an asset when you're going into a game against a defense as aggressive as Georgia's?
I think so. Yeah, just because you would hate to have cookie cutter the 2 or 3 guys that can only do this, and so Georgia takes that away and you're stuck with nothing. I think that at least it allows you to be multiple, and it proves to cause defenses to have to prepare for different schemes. They're having to prepare for gap schemes, wide zone schemes, the duo scheme, draws, things of that nature. So I think it's going to help us in the long run. Like I said earlier, just right now, just ready to get it going, after game 2.
Let's go to Hale, back middle.
The interception Zeb threw, what was
and when he looked for the ball and when Zeb threw the ball was not timed up. Who was right or wrong, that's in-house. But, I think that going back, if we could do that one over again, I think we'd have a lot of success with that play, and I think we'd get it fixed. But you don't get do-overs, and I think we learned our lesson, and we'll move on from it.
And I guess you'll probably have a similar answer for the ball that I guess Jaheim went and got when he and Josh were sort of in the same area. What can you
hell of an
share
interception, It's weird because Jaheim had a route where he was supposed to basically run over in this area and stop and then suck the defense down and then try to throw the ball over their head. Well, when Jaheim came out of the play, the run action was such a good run action that everything just disappeared and there was nothing but grass. So Jaheim's a young player. His innate reaction was run. And so he just kept running. He looks up, the ball's, Josh has come across the defender's face. He's getting ready to catch the ball, and then like a freaking something in the swamp just jumped out of nowhere and just grabbed the ball from him. But it was a great athletic play. Obviously, we don't want that. We'd rather Josh just be able to catch that ball with just him and that defender and see what he can do. But little things like that. Jaheim hasn't played a lot of football, but even in plays like that he wasn't supposed to make, he's so super athletic. It shows you just the possibility of what he brings to our offense.
Let's go to Ben Portnoy, front middle.
Marcus, not to harp on the run game too much, but obviously you guys rode Juju a little bit down the stretch and the hot hand. I know we've talked about that's kind of ideally how this looks. Is that kind of what you've envisioned this looking like when you find a guy and he rolls and that just you just kind of ride him and see where it goes?
Yeah, he was playing at a high level, and at that point, especially to that point where we had little to no success, when we had somebody rolling like that, we weren't about to take him out. But it started with him on special teams. Like, he was a key factor in the block on DK's return. He goes out there, DK gets a little banged up, he catches it, he returns one, sets up the tying field goal. And then he gets out there, and his competitive nature of how he's made up just allows him to have success and have productivity. So wasn't about to take him out. If he needed a blow, we'd give him a blow, but we got him back in there quick.
All right, we got time for one last question here. Colin Taylor on the front right.
Marcus, how would you evaluate the offensive line's pass protection through the first two games?
I would say a layman would watch it and say they can't pass protect, but when you peel the layers back and you understand certain calls that are being made from the quarterback position, the communication between the quarterback, running back, offensive line, there were 2 snaps the other day that they weren't even bringing pressure, and the communication between the quarterback, O-line, and the running back, we slid the line one direction and didn't even block a defensive end. So when you don't block a defender, whether they're rushing 3 or 4, you're going to have quarterback pressure. And when it happens fast, you think, man, they can't protect. They don't know what, they're being overwhelmed, and that wasn't the case at all. Just it's communication. And then at the end of the game, they just started heating us up, 0 pressure. So they were always bringing one more than we could protect. And you saw we were just taking shots down the field, and Josh was making plays. So we're still right on point in my opinion. As long as we continue to get our communication better, we have to eliminate putting them in terrible positions like we did the other day early in the game. There shouldn't have been any pressure on 2 of those sacks that they had.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you guys very much.
We'll go ahead and open it up for questions right away. So David on the front left is first.
Clayton, the line around here for kind of 2 weeks has been who's the quarterback. Now that's kind of going with Georgia. Both 2 of their guys might be banged up. So how do you prepare for that especially when you know the guy that played last week all of a sudden is kind of questionable to play this week, and the starter's probably not going to play?
Yes, really, our process doesn't change depending on who's going to be the quarterback. The only thing you would evaluate would be if any of the system changes. If the system stays the same, you would continue with the same process that you would always have as a program of defense. And right now, we're just kind of focused on what we're doing, and we'll figure those other things out on Saturday.
Let's go Colin Taylor, front right.
Clint, what have you seen from Cam Smith in the 2 weeks he's been able to play, and what's he meant to this defense, especially in the secondary?
Absolutely. Cam means a ton to us. He brings the passion and the energy. We just have to do a great job as a program and understanding our process and trying to channel that passion and energy in the right direction. And that's going to continue to take all of us to continue to get that done for Cam. But what he's meant for us is he's given us the opportunity to one that we feel like that can go out and play a lot of snaps against really good receivers. And along with Dowell and Rush, those guys are doing a really good job. But Cam has brought those guys along, and he has a little bit more experience. But it's nice having them back there.
David, front left.
With Cam, you mentioned channeling it in the right direction. How do you kind of come to him and say, like what you're doing, but you got to knock off some of the extracurricular stuff?
Obviously, I mean it's a process. It's one of those things where, like I said, he's a great kid, and he hasn't been trying to fight us back about trying to channel things in the right direction. We're just going to continue to get better every single day at that. But we just got to do a great job of getting his passion, his energy in the right direction with the rest of the program.
John Widow, back right.
It seems like the secondary's had some success early on. What is that attributed to? Is that partially your scheme, defensive line being really good and not making those guys cover too long, Torian Gray, or is the personnel just kind of underrated?
Yeah, it's one of those things where once you break down defensive football, it takes 11. It takes 11. It takes everyone to be successful. So I think that all those things you just said play hand in hand. And I think our guys are believing in team defense, and I think as long as that's one thing that we preach a lot on day one, is I try to tell them that the technique that you play up front is in direct correlation with how you play on the back end. So we kind of teach those things from football 1-on-1 back in January, and it's nice to see some of those things show up, and they believing in it. So we're just going to continue try to keep that going.
Corey Diaz, back left.
Clayton, so far this week during practice, have you noticed an uptick in enthusiasm and energy along the defensive line? The matchup that they have this Saturday going against, one of the best offensive lines there is, how accepting are they of what awaits them on Saturday night?
Our guys are very accepting of the challenge. We understand where we're going on Saturday and who we're going against, but the process should not change. Your attitude should not change. And how you come to work should not change. Obviously, your only thing that changes on Saturday is who you're playing against. But we've been trying to preach that from day one. So Eastern Illinois was just as important as any other game that we played. So we want to continue that mindset and the process and keep our guys in the right mind. But obviously, we know it's the opponent that we're playing on Saturday. So obviously, our Georgia guys, all of our guys up front, everyone on this football team should be a little bit more excited because it's SEC football, not just the fact that it's UGA.
Let's go to way in the back to Phil Kornblue.
Hey, Coach, I know you don't have to worry about him, but in watching the film, have you gotten a look at Jordan Davis and what you think about him in terms of his size and agility and skills?
Small world, man. I went to high school with Jordan Davis' mother. She was on my basketball team at Triton High School, Miss Shay Allen. So I've known Jordan for a long time. It's a small world. We don't want to get into how it's just a small world, man. He came on a visit to the previous school I was at in North Carolina, and then just kind of asked, figured out that his mother was Shay Allen. She was on my class of '94 for Triton High School basketball team. So he's a big kid. He's a big man. So that's all it is. All I got.
Let's go to Greg Portnoy
Yep.
in the middle.
Not sure how to follow that one up, but with the defensive line, obviously
Yep.
you guys have gotten a lot of pressure, at least early. Just how much have you seen that maybe take some pressure off the back end of the defense, if at all? And what is it that they're doing that's maybe helping the rest of the defense and sort of setting up the rest of the defense for success as well?
Really, everything starts, it starts up front. And, our guys, we understand that and we preach it. So our guys just got to continue to play team defense, like we said earlier. Our DBs have to understand down and distance. All those things play a factor in how you play, how fast the ball is coming out. Those are all the things that Coach Gray, myself, Coach Beamer, everyone who's speaking, the longer you cover, obviously we need more pressure and vice versa. So if they get there fast, we don't have to cover as long, down and distance. So those things are that we're harping on. And our guys, that's called football IQ, football awareness. And those things started back in January. So we just got to continue to grind, continue that process, and I think our guys will just continue to get better every day at practicing at games. That's the goal.
Let's go with Colin Taylor in the front right.
Clayton, is there anything unique about what Georgia does offensively, or is it just they have a bunch of really good explosive players and a really good offensive line and just go with that?
I think they have a great system. One, I think they do a great job of mixing things up. They do a great job of getting a lot of guys involved, and they know when to use the back. They know when to use their scat backs. They know when to use the receivers, tight ends. I think, they do a great job of just mixing things up, and that makes it hard for any defense.
And I guess obviously the defense has played well the first 2 weekends. How much of that has been, how well received has that been on the recruiting trail, and how often do you talk about the stuff you're putting on film through the first 2 weeks with the guys you're talking to?
Well, the main thing, we just want to make sure they understand that, things that we told them that we were going to do as far as how we're going to use our scheme, how we use each player at each position. I think we kind of preach on that more. We don't really kind of get into look what we're doing, woo-woo, and all that kind of stuff, but it's more just about the system that we told you guys that we're going to run, how we're going to utilize you as a player when you come here, and just how we're going to develop you. So that we kind of focus on that more than we do what's going on the stat world.
Let's go to Augustus Stone in the middle, right behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So through the first 2 games, I want to know, is there any guy who's kind of like stood out to you, just kind of surprising you from, really performing well? And then also, how would you evaluate your new guys, like Carlin Splittell and David Spalding, just kind of how have they been able to get into the swing of things?
Obviously, some of the guys that are standing out that to me that goes unnoticed. I think that's what you said. And to me, I keep going back to Aaron Sterling. I always keep saying him, but I feel like the way he plays on certain downs, I think Sherrod Green is doing some things that goes unnoticed. Jalen Foster does some things that goes unnoticed. And it was really nice to see CP, which is Carlos Patel, and David Spalding get out and play meaningful downs for the Gamecocks. And I think they're getting better every single time they go out there. And I think that's the goal, and just continue to work together with Coach Gray and myself and Coach Beamer. And I think the sky can be the limit for both of those guys.
Let's go back to Colin, front right.
Clayton, about Aaron, just what was your first impression? Obviously not a guy that is necessarily as physically imposing as some of these other SEC defensive ends, but what was your first impression of him, getting to meet him, and what's he kind of meant to not only the defensive line, but the defensive unit as a whole as one of the older guys?
It's just his leadership and how he carries himself like a grown man. He really wants to, no matter what, you ask him to do, he's not the biggest, but he finds a way to get things done, so he's that guy that, if you had to make some phone calls, some bad things would happen, and he's one of the guys that you'll bring with you. I don't want to promote that, but that's just when I see him, that's what I think of. Like if something had to happen, I think he would have my back. Just to how he imposes his will and just his attitude, and that's the part you love about Aaron, and he brings that to the table. And I think our guys kind of have that feeling. I'm not saying he's a bully, but he got some bully mannerisms sometimes. But I think that's what defensive needs, and I'm glad he's on my team. So.
Go Corey Diaz, back left.
Yep.
Clayton, I think yesterday or maybe it was Sunday night in the teleconference, Shane mentioned that, right before kickoff after East Carolina decided to elect to receive, that it felt like you guys were talking to the players about they were going to take a shot. Obviously they did. Talk about, I guess, what you noticed on what went wrong on that particular play and how the guys responded just from a play standpoint as well as a communication standpoint.
Yeah, Shane definitely said that. And obviously, when teams ask to select the ball, something's going on. So we was well aware of something that was going to be up within the first 4 or 5 plays. And we just had a mistake from a player. And if it's on the back end, it's going to show up on the scoreboard. It's not like any other position like we spoke before. So that was that. And I transitioned to the sideline. Our guys came, and all of them said when they came, if they got to trick us, that's telling you they don't think they can beat us. That was kind of the mindset on the defensive sideline. And I was kind of shocked to hear our guys say that. So that kind of kept us calm. And obviously I didn't go crazy because I knew we had a ton of plays left to play, and 1 touchdown don't win football games for the most part.
Anything else for Coach White? Let's go last question to John Woodall in the back right.
Who are 2 or 3 of the other guys who you would take with you into a bar fight?
I didn't say bar fight.
Any back alley fight, any kind of fight.
Okay. If I'm going down a dark alley and I don't feel comfortable, I'm bringing Aaron Sterling, I'm bringing Brad Johnson, Sherrod, and that's about it. You said 2 or 3, so I'm gonna stop. I think I'm good if I got those 3 with me. I'll be all right. I promise you. All right, take care. Y'all have a good one. See y'all.